Hello, this is Jamie Magridge. Welcome to Jamie's Craft Table. Today I'm going to do a 3-card series, a simple card, an avid card, and then a avid card, or a very fancy card. So let's get started. I'm using Cottage Rose. I'm just going to be using this stamp and this sentiment and all of my cards. I'm going to be using Early Espresso ink and vanilla cardstock. And on a few of them, I'm bringing in Early Espresso cardstock as well. I have 4 colored pencils: Daffodil Delight, Granny Apple Green, Bermuda Bay, and Melon Mambo. That's what I'm going to be used to color today. So let's get started. This is the first card. It's a very simple card. The only cardstock you need is a card base of 5.5 by 8.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. And this is the vanilla or the ivory cardstock. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is stamp my sentiment. Early Espresso ink. I'm going to stamp that down here towards the bottom. Perfect. Now I'm going to stamp this large floral image. Let's ink it up well. I'm going to line up this little space here between where the flower is and the first leaf is, just above that bee. Push it down, make sure I have good even coverage all the way around it. And don't rush the stamping part. You want to let it sit on your paper for a minute so it makes good contact. Very nice. Okay, now let's close this ink pad for a minute. Bring in those colored pencils. To color in the flower, you'll see there's registration marks. I'll pull it up and see. All around here there's registration marks. I'm just going to color this yellow pencil all around where those registration marks are. I'm not going to fill in the whole flower, and I'm not doing a fancy neat job. You don't want firm pressure, you want a nice light pressure, somewhat light pressure, and I kind of go in strokey but circular motion. And I'm going to do that for all of these petals. And don't be afraid to turn your cardstock. Kind of trying to make my strokes go with the flow of the petals or the lines of those registration marks. Shading in the petals. All right. This might be a longer video because I'm doing 3 cards. Okay, then I'm going to come in with the Melon Mambo, and just down towards the base where the registration marks are the darkest or the most, I'm just going to add a little bit of this Melon Mambo. I want it a little bit darker in these little crevice areas, so I'll put a little bit more pressure there, or go over it a second time. You keep your hand light. You don't need to press hard. You just need a little bit of other color. You don't need to do this. It's pretty just the yellow. And I'm going to color this as well, just so it has a little bit of color. And you'll notice here I'm doing like a darker around under the edge here where the petals would overlap. All right, getting there. It's not a real fancy coloring. I'm just doing very basic coloring. Now, if you think you get too heavy-handed with the pink color or the darker color you're using, go back in with your lighter color and it'll blend out. And I'll show you here in a second. I'll purposely go darker here so I can show you. Okay, well, this is what I've got so far. Focus. Okay, and you'll see here it's a little bit too dark, so I'm just going to take my yellow, I'm going to go right over the top of it, and it's going to blend it out. A little bit over here. Okay, so that's how you fix it if you think you got too heavy-handed. You can always go in with the white as well and do the same thing. Okay, now for the leaves, I'm going to go in with a Granny Green. I'm just going to scribble a little color in. Again, I'm not going all the way to the edges. I'm keeping my pencil strokes similar to those of the registration marks in the illustration. Doesn't have to be perfect. You could color the whole leaf in if you want. That's fine too. I'm just making it a quick coloring. Okay, then I'm going to bring in the Bermuda Bay and color these flowers here. You'll notice I have a pretty sharp pencil so I can get very detailed into little areas. Okay, then I'm going to just go in these leaves in the center here, and I'm going to pick one side and add just a little bit of this Bermuda Bay to the one side of the leaves. There's no right or wrong here. You can leave them just green if you want. I'm just one that even when I was a kid and coloring with crayons, I would add different colors and dimensions, so I just tend to do that. And then again, if you want to shade it out a little bit, just go back in with your lighter color right over the top and it'll blend it in. Okay, so that's the first card. Let's finish it off by bringing in some of those brushed metallic butterflies. Let's put one here, a little one here with it. Let's add one up here. Okay, there's card number one. That's what we used to call the simple card or the beginner card. Okay, card number 2 is very similar to card number 1, except I'm adding a layer of early espresso. And this one is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And the layer that I'm going to stamp on is 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, so it's basically the same as before. And I'm going to use, and I have the card base. I have one that I stamped on previous that I messed up a little bit, but I can cover over the top of that, so that's what I'm going to use. Okay, so let's go ahead and stamp on this one. It's 4 by 5 1/4. I'm going to stamp it exactly the same way that we did the first card. Stamp the best wishes. You can use any sentiment you want. I just chose this one. Okay, and just ink up the flower real well. And this one, the orientation is a little bit different. I put the leaves going towards the top. And the flowers nested down at the bottom more. Perfect. Okay, and we're going to color that the same way. Use the yellow, the Daffodil Delight. Sorry, I got kind of quiet and zenful when I'm coloring. It's one of my things I enjoy doing a lot. Again, it's not detailed. You're not worrying too much about stroking or anything. You're just taking your time, just enjoying the process. If you want a softer look, do the circles. Like this petal's softer, so I did like circles instead of just strokes. You see less of the pencil strokes then. I don't know, I just instinctively color, so I guess I don't pay attention. Alright, now I'm going to come back in with the Melon Mambo. Do exactly like I did before. And having a sharp pencil again makes it so you can get into these little spaces without overlapping what you don't already did, or without leaving spaces that you didn't color. If you do, it's alright, go over it with your a lighter color. Trying to hurry here. I probably should have done this one in advance, but I figured you'd want to see it, so. Although it's exactly the same as I did on the previous one. except where I put the flowers a little bit different. Scribble in some color here on the stamens. Come back in here with this yellow because it looks a little too dark there for me. Blend those pencil lines a little bit. Okay. Then I'm going to come in with the green. Again, feel free to move your paper around. It doesn't need to be stationary on the surface. Makes it easier for you to color it. Move it. Okay, and a little bit of blue, just on one side. More towards the base of each leaf. A little bit heavier handed than I was when I colored my first one today. Probably because I'm hurrying. Come in here. Blend that out a little bit there. Okay. Some blue to these flowers here. They're probably supposed to be white. They're probably supposed to be status, but since I used the blue in the leaves, I figured I'd use the blue in these flowers. Okay, now we're going to mount this to our early espresso layer. Well, my glue stopped, so let's bring in a pin. I have these T-pins. I have a magnet on my wall. Keep them on. And I just poke that in. And you'll see it pulls out the little bit that is stuck in there. Yeah. Okay. There's not much of a border here. You can't see it, so let me move this so you can see. And then this is going to get mounted to the front of this card. And you know what? I think I'm going to do it on 2 dimensionals this time. My original I didn't, but let's give it a little bit of something else. I'll give you another option. Okay, and again, this is only going to have a little tiny bit of a border, 1/16 of an inch. This is 1/8 of an inch smaller than the front of the card. Okay, let's bring in those butterflies. I'm gonna add them here. Oh, this one, let's add them down here. Well, let's do it a little different because I left a spot there, so. Okay, and one up here. There we go. So there's card number 2. So this was card 1, just on the card base. This one we added the layer, so that's card number 2. And we popped it up on dimensionals. Okay. So card number 3. Is this one. I don't know if you can see I added an embossing folder. I added some die cuts. So I brought in the matching dies, the cottage flowers dies that goes with the cottage rose. And I added this die, which was from Potted Succulents. And I also brought in the Twigs and Sprigs embossing folder. Okay, so for materials, it's the same as the second one. I have a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of white cardstock, which I've previously run through that embossing folder. I have my 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 inch piece of Early Espresso. And then I have a scrap of white, which I'm going to stamp on, and then die cut them out. So let's go ahead and do that. And where's my card base? It's still in there. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and stamp these. The lid on my glue. Stamp the flower first this time. Stamp it up on one corner here or one edge, doesn't really matter. And then the sentiment. Go down here. Okay. I'm going to bring my snips in at this point. I'm going to cut this in half because from experience, when I'm coloring this, I accidentally smudged this. So I'm going to cut this in half. So I can set this aside. We'll go ahead and color this. And we're going to color it the same way we did before. Excuse the phone. Fortunately, with this way I'm filming now, I don't have a way to edit. So, and I can't turn it off. I forgot to unplug it. Of course, it wasn't an important call. Get a lot of those calls trying to get me to sign up for Medicare or an extended warranty on my car. Get a lot of those. Right, going with the Melon Mambo. Also noticing that as I'm putting a little bit firmer pressure down here at the base of the petals and lifting up just a little bit towards the tops of the darker color. Probably with the yellow as well, but I just happen to notice that I'm doing that. You'll see it doesn't take long to do. More down here. Don't hesitate to go over it again if you want to add more color. And each time you color them, they're going to be a little different. They're never exactly the same. Almost done with the melon mambo. Almost. Okay. Just going to go over here a little bit. Alright, now I'm going to do the leaves real fast. I find I work better if I can stroke away from myself. A couple more leaves here. Bermuda Bay. Okay, these little blue flowers. Okay, now let's see if this will fit through here. I think it will. Yeah, okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my small cutting machine here. Sorry if it shakes the camera. Okay, so then I need my one plate and two cutting plates. On this, I was pushing it down to see if it had any bow in it. It had a little bit of bow here, so I'm going to flip it over and use the other side. Okay, let's line this flower up. It's pretty easy to line up, actually. If you can get over it. A little bit of space all the way around it. Put another plate on top. And we're going to run that through. Might have slid just a little, but it'll still work. Okay, perfect. And then let's do the same thing with our best wishes. What's there? Okay, and we want it towards what the sentiment to be towards one end. Because the one end will get tucked under the flower. Okay. All right, now we can assemble this card. Put a couple things away. All right, we have our card base. I'm going to go ahead and mount this piece to my brown. Let's bring in the scrap paper so you can see. Doesn't matter which way they go because it's going to be a horizontal card instead of a portrait style card. It's going to go this way. Whoops. Okay. I'm going to mount this directly to our card front. Okay, now we're going to bring in some dimensionals. I already got them out. Where are they? Put some dimensionals on the back of our flower. You can put them on the leaves. And we want to keep them towards the top of the flower. And then down in this bottom part's going to be underneath the we're going to tuck that sentiment underneath it, so one in the center like that. Okay, so we're going to kind of dry fit where we want it. Go ahead and stick that flower down, and we're going to wet glue this piece in. And that's why we didn't put a dimensional there, because I wanted to be able to tuck this underneath. Now we're going to bring in those flowers, those butterflies. We're going to add a large one down here, a small one right here. Whoops. And then we'll add another one. I guess it doesn't matter. Up here. And there's our third card. It's the Avid. It's the casual stamper. And here's the beginner. Or the simple stamper. Well, thank you so much for joining me today at Jamie's Craft Table. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you can find a little bit of time for some stamps, ink, and paper.